Hello everybody, my name is Radu Vunvulea, and for the next 40-45 minutes we will talk about security, about how we can secure our application when we develop solution for cloud, for Azure, more precious. Why security is so important? Well, I think as we've seen in the last 2 years, a lot of organizations, companies move very fast to cloud. They started to adopt cloud in different ways, through migration, through greenfield projects, or they realize that their on-prem systems are not enough for the current context, for the current business context, and they decided to do as fast as possible a migration to Azure, to cloud. And this is very important because if you take a look on the internet, there are a lot of best practices, recommendations, how to secure your application, how to write secure code, how to use in a safe way different resources that each cloud vendor is providing. Nevertheless, it is pretty hard to find the right balance between what are the features that you want to implement from the security point of view, which one are mandatory, how you convince the stakeholders, the business one especially, to provide you support by providing time and resources. And the fourth thing is which are the ones from the compliancy and governance point of view that is mandatory to have. Finding the right balance between all these four, it's not easy to do. What I aim today is not about giving you the top 10 best practices because they're changing depending a lot of your industry, a lot of what kind of compliancy, which countries you are, what kind of application you're building, and so on. And you'll find a lot of materials on the internet. What we will do together will be the following. I will take a standard application, and in most of the cases we are building applications where we are using microservices inside a Kubernetes cluster or inside, for example, an Azure App Service, storage like Azure Storage, SQL, application insight, and we'll analyze exactly what are the core features that we are forgetting to configure, to take them into account, especially from the development point of view, when we are building a solution. At the end, we'll talk about two additional items. The first one will be about Microsoft Defender for Cloud. The previous name was Azure Security Center plus Azure Defender that merged in one service. And the second thing will be about different tools that we can use for scanning repositories for secrets, passwords, and so on. Before jumping, I would like to present myself. My name is Radu Vunvulea. I'm working as group head of cloud inside Enava, and in my free time, I have a blog where I write about technical content, and you can find the content, or if you want to have a chat with me, also you can find me very easily on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you have after the session any kind of questions, drop me a line on Twitter or LinkedIn, and let's have a chat. Good. My first production system in Azure went live in 2020, and starting from there, I think I worked with around, I don't know exactly how many projects in the cloud, but around 80-85% were Azure, and then 50% were AWS. Okay, so let's start. Let's take a look on security. And I think that COVID had a high impact on security and cloud security and how we see security. And let me explain you why. Well, the number of cyber attacks in only in EU increased with 250% only in 2020. And it's a huge number. Usually we had around 15-20% increase per year. And now it increased 10 times more, 250%. That's crazy. And this is not all. Wait. Large-scale breaches in 2020 also increased with almost 300%. We are so used to hear every few weeks or days on an online newspaper or on a TV channel that another top Fortune 500 company lost their data or privacy information, and they're available on on different markets, on the store, on the dark internet, or you can download it from torrent, and that's crazy. This is happening when you don't invest enough resources to secure a system, and nevertheless, when you know that is enough, when you draw that line, it is enough security based on the business that I'm running. You need to find a balance that you align, and also you need to take some risks because sometimes you prefer to go with a less security configuration, but to be able to go on the market as soon as possible to not lose business. It's hard from the technical point of view. Sometimes it's hard to accept, but in the end, the business can decide what approach they would like to have. Something that astonished me and shocked me was that only in 2020 around 50% of individuals fall for phishing scams while working at home. What does this mean? One of you or me, and because we are two people at this moment in time, fall into a phishing scam in 2020. What does this mean? It doesn't mean that they stole your credit card information or your PayPal password. No, no, no. It's more simple than that. It's about that in one way or another, a phishing scam was success, and they were able to get your personal data, email, password, sometimes password, name, some preferences that you have. Basically, in one way or another, you fill a form or some content and you provide it to them through a fake website, through email, through some forms from Facebook. I don't know exactly what they can do, but basically, one of two people fall in this kind of phishing scams. And phishing attacks increased with around 350% in 2020 and in the first quarter of 2021, especially attacking large organizations. And one good thing happened. Starting especially from the third quarter of 2020, I've seen more and more organizations investing in security education. And that's great. Why? Because it's more important to educate your teams, your people about what does security means, how they need to be aware of different aspects to identify possible security breach or a phishing attack. Because in this way, they can report if they identify an email that is a little bit spooky, or if they identify, for example, a website that looks very similar to the one that they are using or the organization is providing to their customers. Nevertheless, it's a fake one. So, education related to security, to cybersecurity, it's one of the most important things and a good one that happened in the last 1 year and a half. It's pretty clear that COVID and everything that happened after 2020 had a high impact on cloud. Only talking about Azure, as you can see, the demand in the first 2-3 quarters of 2020 increased with 70% in APAC, 70% in EMEA, and a very similar value in AMER and Japan. That's a huge number because usually the demand per year was much lower. This is why for some weeks we've seen in the second quarter of 2020 some cloud limitation and some service limitation, especially in Azure Azure regions in Europe, meaning that if you wanted to spin up some specific Azure VMs or SQL databases, you are limited. And why? Because CSP providers like Azure, AWS, and GCP were reserving resources to governance, to chemical manufacturer, to healthcare, to life science companies, and so on. And one of the things happened that they were out of resources for a specific type and for specific limits. Also, the increase in cloud workloads by industry was pretty high on insurance, retail, and chemical manufacturing. Well, in the chemical manufacturing was something that, at least in my case, surprised me because I'm not working at the industry. And I was not aware about how much computation they are using to do different simulation. And it's a huge business. And one of the top computation and in the end virtual machines consumption inside cloud during that time and still now are chemical manufacturing. Insurance is not a surprise. I don't know about you, but I don't remember last time when I went in a mall or in a shop to make an insurance for house, for the car. Everything, almost everything now is online, and the one that didn't have yet on a platform where you can fill an insurance, now you can do it online. For the same the way how we interact with financial services, like for example a bank. I think the only time that I need to go at this moment in time in the bank is to get a new card, a new credit card, and nothing more than that. And retail, yeah, it increased drastically. Even in before 2020, things went pretty crazy, but now we are seeing also in countries and regions where digital and online retail was not such a big deal yet, we see a boom. And I will give you an example. I'm based in Romania. I'm living in a city in the middle of Transylvania called Cluj. Before 2020, we had online shops. There were some platforms from which you could from which you could order grocery or from different local shops, something like that. But now, almost all large shops are inside 2 or 3 different platforms, and for free you can order anything, anytime. This was the biggest impact, I would say, from the retail point of view in Romania in large cities. Okay, the last thing about security before jumping to hands-on is the following. From February to May 2020, more than half a million of people globally were affected by breaches where personal data of video conference users were stolen and sold on the dark web. How they were stolen? Well, I will not give the names of the streaming platforms and on online event platform, but in most of the cases, you are able as an attendee to see the name, the email address, sometimes a Facebook or LinkedIn account, and other details of other attendees. So there were a lot of people that were using bots that were joining different conferences with fake accounts, of course, and getting data of the people, acquiring data, crawling basically, and getting data from different people of the attendees. And based on that, they were able to define different profiles of people and after that to sell them on the internet. And there were pretty large platforms that were affected by this kind of thing. Nowadays, things looks much better, and from what I see, except the name of the person, when you can see it, you are not able to see anything else. Good. I think that it is enough though, and let's start easily with one of the most common mistakes that we are doing when we are building a web application. What is one of the most of the common mistakes is security, keeping connection strings, passwords in files like access and JSON. Even if you encrypt them, still it is not enough. They are very visible, they are very easily to access and to use. The first thing that you should use at the moment in time where you are using Azure in Visual Studio for a project is to use service dependency. Service dependency is a great feature of Visual Studio and of .NET that is allowing you to store all the connection strings, all the information related to how you connect to different cloud services, to different Azure services in secret.json. And what's pretty nice here is the following. It's not that it's in one place. No, it's about secret.json. That is an amazing file. It's a local file that is not stored in the same location as your rest of your project files and is encrypted using your Windows user, your Windows account. It means that if somebody else is putting hands on secret.json, let's say somehow you're pushing to the repository, or somebody puts his hand on your laptop, as long as he don't have access to your account, the secret.json will be protected. Nevertheless, please keep in mind, I will talk a little bit later about it. If somebody puts a hand on the development machine or your own machine, then all the information in secret.json can be accessed. And this is why it's important to define a clear strategy from the role-based access control and how you access the access management of resources. I'm trying all the time to recommend, but it's hard to convince the teams, that even development teams don't need full access to Azure environment, even in the development ones. Because if you analyze what are the most common activities, for example, that a developer is doing, let's say an Azure subscription, once the project is started, is publish or pushing, and sometimes not even pushing from his Visual Studio, because sometimes he has the CI/CD, the pipeline, and just pushing to the repos and automatically creating. After that, he needs to access the logs, the application, of course, and in some cases, some repo and logs and audit. They don't need access to do or to change the configuration, and from what I see in most cases, we are seeing developers who say, well, that's a DevOps job to change the configuration of some Azure services. I will let the devs to do that. Okay, so we talked about secret.json, we talked about where you should store them. You should never store anywhere else this kind of secrets. And let's jump inside the Azure portal and let's take a look one by one of the services that I mentioned at the beginning. And let's start with one of the most basic one, Azure storage. And why is it very important to talk about Azure storage? Because it's so used. It's one of the most used service in any type of application. And what is impressing me that is still we are doing a lot of mistakes. How? We are still using account keys, key 1 and key 2, for almost anything. Almost all the applications are using the account keys. Sometimes, and you should do that, sometimes I see that, okay, we don't use account keys. We are using shared access signature, and that's great because shared access signature is providing you more granular access for limited period of time to the resource, like for which service, what kind of permission, read, write, modify, and so on, starting from when until when, and based on what. And this is great, but we're doing a mistake. You shouldn't have a token that is valid for more than 1 hour, that's 45 minutes, 1 hour. Nevertheless, I see a lot of tokens that are valid for, guess what? 6 months, 9 months. It's basically the same as an access key, and they're forgetting about that. Also, almost nobody is using allowed IP address. Basically, it's a whitelist, and you specify exactly what are the public IPs that can use this shared access signature to be able to access the storage. And in general, when you're generating a token like this one, you know exactly who will use it. An on-prem system, and maybe an end customer. Even if the end customer is from the browser, during his session that he has active, there are small chances that he will change his IP. For a small chance, for example, like an upload or download and things like that. So, you shouldn't use access keys. You should limit it how you use it as a signature. Okay, but what we should use? Well, we have access control, we have YAML. You can very easily create roles and groups, and you have the service principal. But I think that people are forgetting about it. It's not about forgetting. Most of the teams are aware of this. But the problem is that it's pretty expensive. Not from the running cost, but from configuration, implementation, and maintenance point of view. Because if you don't use YAML very often, you will feel that it's a little bit cumbersome to configure at the beginning. And I think it's pretty important to have a small introduction about it and to emphasize it's important. And why? Because Azure Role-Based Access Control is providing you the ability to have services inside Azure that are able to communicate, to exchange information between them without password, without tokens, without certification. And that's amazing. Because in this way you don't need the secret.json files or any other location where you store this kind of secrets. How it works? Pretty simple. We have security principle, and besides the user and group, I want to bold a little bit the service principle. A service principle is another service. Imagine that as service principle you can have an app service, a Kubernetes cluster, you can have a VM, a function, an Azure function, and so on. You have the role. The role basically are what kind of operation can be done. Read, write, modify, delete, and the third thing is the scope. Especially the scope can be, for example, the Azure storage. So, we can do a role assignment and we can specify an app service through a security principle can do read and write operation on one or multiple containers to that specific Azure storage. Here we are. There it is. No cloud keys, no password. The same thing can be done also, for example, for SQL, for Azure SQL and for all other services. Keep this in mind and try to use it as much as possible. Another interesting thing that I found that people are not very aware of is the access level of a container. We have free. Private, it's the default one. Nobody can access with the right access policy or tokens or with the right role assigned. We have the blob one. The blob one is it's a little bit hard to understand sometimes because as long as I have the URL to the blob, I can access it from any public location from the internet. If I don't have the full path to the blob, I will not be able to access it. And the third one is container, where basically if I know the container name, I can list the blobs inside the container, and I can access the container and so on. Now, most of the cases start with private, and depending on what you do, and if you have content that is public available to the internet, then you can set different configuration. Most of the cases we like to make it public if you have public information, or for example, you are using the static website, where basically Azure Blob Storage becomes a place where you can store your information. Okay, good. So this is Azure Storage, and I think that it is enough about Azure Storage. Let's take a look on App Service. Let's have a look on App Service and the most important things that we should be aware of when you're using App Service. First thing I'd like to talk with you, let's go in the App Service tab, let's go to this app. It is about services and configuration. Why? Well, because of the way how we are writing applications, in the configuration we end up with key values of different things or connection strings. For example, in this case, I have 2021 RV storage with the value of the connection string. So if somebody puts his hand or get access to the App Service dashboard, from Azure, he will be able to access the connection string. He will say, well, it's really hard to get access. Really? And why I'm saying this? Because on the cloud ops, on operation management side, when people are doing support, sometimes also they have access, limited or full access, all the time to this part. And if his account is compromised, well, somebody will be able to access and to connect to all this information or to put his hands on certifications, on different secrets, and so on. What is the thing that is missing in the current context is Azure Key Vault, the vault itself. And why Azure Key Vault is very important? Azure Key Vault is offering you a secure location where you can store your secret, your keys, your certifications, and so on. But besides this, it's also offering you something more. Because you can have a role assigned that is providing you access to the app service, to the virtual machine, to Azure storage, but nevertheless, you don't have access to Key Vault to do, for example, a read operation of a specific key. So for each secret that you can see here, for example, in this case, I have storage. I can be a user that has full access to Azure portal, to all the environment, except to these secrets, or to that secret. And to the secret only a service principal from the production environment can be able to access. And also, you can have people, and in most of the cases you should have administrators that can access the key vault, but they don't have the right to be able to access the keys and the secrets and the certifications. And there are also other nice things of Key Vault. One of the things that I like is the tag capability. Basically, when you're creating a key, you can have a tag, like in this case, I have environment prod, and basically you can have multiple versions of the same key. For example, let's add a new one, and let's put a new tag. It's not prod, let's put it reprod. Meaning that you can manage very easily in a simple way what are the keys for different environments, and through service principle, through role assignment, you ensure that depending on the environment, different services have access to specific keys. I find very nice. Now, between your workloads and your Key Vault, you also should have app configuration. App configuration is a repository, is a main repository, very easy to use for your keys, for your secret, for your configuration items. Can be shared between multiple services from the same Azure region. It supports versioning. You can have keys and values directly written in that configuration or references from any Key Vault. The end user, the end consumer, in our case, workload, will not know if he's accessing directly the value from app configuration or it is jumping to a Key Vault. If he has the right roles, this will be done automatically by Azure. Okay, one thing that I would like to talk about app configuration before going forward, it is basically two different things. Right. One is especially when you do cloud ops or you're doing debugging, you have the ability to do remote. You have the ability to do remote debugging. This can be actually from the portal or directly from Visual Studio. I don't know what happened with the Cloud Explorer in my case. One more chance. Basically, from here, once your information is created, you can right click on your app service instance and do a remote debug session. You can put breakpoints and so on. It's pretty nice to use. The second thing that we need to be aware of it is application insight. And application insight is a very powerful tool. In most of the cases, I say to people that application insight is like Google Analytics for technical teams. You have all the information that you would like to see, that you would like to access in only one place. You can see logs, you can see audit information, you can see what happened before and after a specific session and so on. And if you have an application insight that is connected to multiple services, you can have an image about what happened, what was the flow of the user before an error, before a failure, or before a security breach happened. And and it's very easily to understand in this kind of cases. Oh yeah, so this was the behavior of the user when an error appeared. So for example, what we can see here, we can see that get a privacy failed. If we click on it, you can see exactly, okay, it was a 500 error, this was the exception, it happened for 4 times in total, and the message was Radu broke it. In my case, this is me. And if you click on one of them, you will see the full historical information. If user done something before and after, it's very easy to see all the call stack and all other information related to telemetry of that user. Now, take into account depending how you deploy the application, you might have more or less of this kind of information. So, for example, in this case, we've seen exactly what the user does. So, page view, what was noticed, after the error appeared, and after what is happened before and after. So we can know exactly, okay, this was the behavior of the user before and after that. Okay, good. Now, let's go forward because I know that we have a limited time, and let's talk about SQL, Azure SQL. Yes, we are in 2022, and the most two common problems that I see in Azure SQL or other SQL flavors, how I like to call it inside Azure, are the following. First one, still we are using that username and password plus the connection string to connect to SQL. Azure Role-Based Access Control. Please use it. It's very, very powerful. It's so easy to use. You can find it almost for all the services, and you should use it. If you have an Azure SQL and you are still using the username and password, please, after this session, go and migrate it to role-based access control. Don't use username and password. This is one of the biggest mistakes and one of the main causes when a data breach is happening. The second thing that we should be aware of is the following. Server firewall, set firewall, basically it's a whitelisting of IPs that are able to access your database. Now, the problem with this one is that people are forgetting to remove the IPs. Maybe organization IPs, your companies are not changing so often. Nevertheless, if you are working from home and you don't have a static IP, or you have a team of 20 people that are working, that's a big problem because you might end up here very easily with ranges of IPs, or even if you have a static IP. For example, this one. This was my IP, I think 2 or 3 months ago. Do you still think that I have still this IP? I don't think so. What is my IP? Last night I had also energy break, so this is my current IP, 229. As you can see, it's different. So if somebody wants to access your database and is already has his username and password for the database, and he knows where you're staying and which is the internet provider, he might start to guess what are the IPs and start to try to use different IPs, because depending on the location, the provider of your internet might use some specific ranges of IPs. So please be aware of that. Now, the last thing of Azure SQL, especially if you're doing, actually in most of the cases, we are doing also, especially the CloudOps team and operational and management team are accessing sometimes for maintenance database and so on. And you have private information. What you should do when somebody from the support is trying to replicate and he really needs the prod access, you shouldn't provide them access. But I think that in some cases they get this kind of access. Use dynamic data masking. What is dynamic data masking? Dynamic data masking gives you the ability to hide the value of specific columns or rows. And you can have, the rows can be hidden totally. The columns you can generate random values, for example, like for emails or for salaries and things like that. You can just have a random value. Or nice and following, you populate the database with some mock content that is accessible and visible only for the support team. And through dynamic data masking or combined with role-based control, you can do this very, very easily. Okay, now before jumping to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, I would like to mention something on Azure Storage. And just give me 30 seconds to share with you. It's about rotation reminder. Don't forget to configure rotation reminder for the access keys. You should rotate them. I don't say that you need to rotate every day, but at least every 3 or 6 months you should do that. This reminder can be pretty nice consuming, but out of the box it's just a notification that you're receiving from the portal, but because it's a policy behind the scene, you can easily integrate through other dashboards, or you can consume it through event grid, and you can have triggers to Azure functions, or you can have a webhook, or you can have an automation that automatically will do something more, like sending an email, opening a ticket, or triggering automatic rotation task to your account. Don't forget about this and please use it. Now, let's talk about Microsoft Defender for Cloud. I really like this system, and why? It gives you the ability to know exactly what are the things that you can improve. What are your possible security issues? And not only this, but also Microsoft Defender for Cloud, previously named Azure Security Center. I'm still trying to do the switch of the name, sorry, because I'm still using the old name. It's giving you also the solution. What are the actions that you need to do to be able to fix the problem? You also have the scoring capability, giving you a score how well you are, and then let's take a look on enable data in transit. This is something that is not configured. If you go on this side, it describes you exactly what is the problem, how it is affected, and also you can trigger a logitech automatically fix for the problem that you have. That's great, I love it. This is one of the services I think that is helping and providing support to the teams. If you need to be compliant from HIPAA, SOC, ISO, PCI DSS, automatically you have assessments and benchmark for the introduction part, and it's providing you exactly the input, covering different compliance aspects, what is not compliant, what is not compliant, and of course, if it's possible, what are the things that you could do? For example, in this case, logs and keywords should be enabled, and if you click on them, also you can fix it automatically. You can have a description, or you can run a logic app that will fix it for you. Okay, good. Now, let's jump to the last topic that I prepared for you, which we still have 3 or 4 minutes. It's about secret and secret scanning. Well, 2022. It is a year where we can do it this very nice and very simple. For example, using Git Secrets, you just register the plugin depending on your cloud vendor. You just run the scan for your push or to your repository, and automatically you get the output. Installation and configuration is very nice. Not only this, but for example, you can add tasks to Azure DevOps, where this is including out of the shelf, or you can specify exactly another library that you want to use. The total number of secrets used by a single owner is pretty huge. And this is why we need to be careful, and we need to know exactly how we are configuring this system. If you take a look on the market, there are a lot of tools. In this case, I have, as an example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different tools. I hope these are 9, and I'm counting them correctly. But each of them are with pros and cons. And you can find a lot of information on the internet. I just prepared a comparison, pros and cons of each of them. On the left side are the pros, on the right side are the cons. I'm a big fan of Spectrum. It's a little bit complex, but the UI is very intuitive. It's great if you have teams that don't have a very good security background. They will find, or are not very technical, they will find very easily to use Spectrum. It's great for a demo to the customer. It's great to explain to business what is happening behind the scenes with all the reporting like that. GitHub Secrets is nicely integrated, but what you need to be careful with GitHub Secrets, the default configuration looks like an MVP. It's very powerful, but it's not yet ready for production. Git Secrets is very easy to integrate into CI/CD, but it has 2 simple algorithms for 2022. It was not developed with the new AI capability and nice features that appeared in the last 2 or 3 years. Gitlix is open source, super powerful, but is for jigs, I would say. No UI, everything from command line, and sometimes you might be scared about that. Another tool that I really like to use is, 1 second, here it is Git Secret Scanning. It's, yes, this one, especially for a demo. It's, you can configure, you can use it in just a few minutes, and you can see the output. I wouldn't go in a prep with it, to tell you the truth, because there is something that is lacking. But for a demo, works great. You have the UI, you have the console, and it's very easy to configure. Okay, now, before us closing, what I would like to remind to you is the following. Azure, AWS, and GCP, all of them have a lot of resources, best practices. They have architecture framework, they have cloud option framework, and so on. Please take a look on them. Please analyze them, because you will find here all the information that you are looking for. For example, you have baselines from the security point of view for each service. If you go on Azure, in the documentation section, almost for all Azure services, you will find a security section where you can find all the documentation. Also, how you need to operate it also. Microsoft is providing the developer guide for Azure, where you can find also the best practices from the security point of view related to how you should use the solution. If you have time or if you like to find more, I highly recommend to take a look on Azure Web Architecture Framework, especially in that section of governance. Because over there I found that a lot of security aspects are covered. Thank you for listening to me. If you have questions or you want to find more about specific topics, feel free to drop me a line or on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Thank you and have a great day. Cheers.